Okay, what can I say about Dragon Ball Z Kakarot? I remember when Bandai Namco was teasing this game back around 2019. Back then, the game was called Dragon Ball Game Project Z, and for first glance, this looked like a Dragon Ball experience that I always wanted as a kid. Open world, anime-like combat, and a pretty cool retelling of the Dragon Ball Z story. Now, this is not the first time a game like this was attempted. Back in the Game Boy Advance era, we had the trilogy of RPGs called the Legacy of Goku trilogy, which were some of the games I put the most time in on that platform. Now, my history with the Dragon Ball series, just like many other kids who was raised in the Toonami era, Dragon Ball Z was an essential show that stole the hearts and minds of all the young boys in America, whether it was the high speed, over-the-top fights, the flashy animation, and the pure brutality of the fights. It was addicting to watch, and everyone I knew, they were just as invested in the show as I was. I could not wait to run home after school to catch the latest episode of Dragon Ball Z. Absolutely. Now, in terms of the video games, I have a pretty extensive history with the Dragon Ball games, starting with the Game Boy Color, Legendary Super Warriors. I used to play this game all the time as a kid. This was a card-based RPG that follows the entire Dragon Ball Z storyline. Once I got a Game Boy Advance, Legacy of Goku was one of the games I begged my parents for. Even though the first game was borderline unplayable with its horrible hit detection, I was still pretty happy to play through the Saiyan and Frieza sagas. The sequels, though, were much better and definitely games I put a lot of time in on the GBA, and I even recommend today. Now, on the home console side, I remember the fighting game Ultimate Battle 22 on the PS1, and for what it is, I guess it was okay, nothing special. As we moved to the PS2 and GameCube era, the Budokai and Tenkaichi series came out and dominated the streets. These games were really something special, and I just fell in love with these games, and even to this day, Budokai and Tenkaichi 3 remain some of the best games to ever use the Dragon Ball license. Now, everything was not great. There were some trash games that came out around that era. Dragon Ball Sagas, Final Bout, and a few other games were questionable. Now, after the PS2 and GameCube era, I kind of fell off the Dragon Ball Z hype train in terms of the video games. I still love the series as a whole, but the games, there were plenty that was released for the next generation of consoles, but I really didn't care. I would not get back into the Dragon Ball gaming side until the release of Xenoverse 1 and 2. These games sparked my interest because they were introducing more of a social element and some things from the Dragon Ball Online games for this experience. Actually, Xenoverse 2 was the game that pushed me to affiliate status over on my Twitch channel. So yeah, I had a lot of fun times. Now, Kakarot. This game seemed to be checking all the right boxes for me, so is it worth playing today? DLC and all. Let's get into it. So, I won't waste your time with the story summary. Dragon Ball Z has been out since 1989. If you have not watched or at least heard about the story of Dragon Ball Z, turn this video off and go watch one of the most influential anime series of all time, or play this game. Now, I will say, the story only covers the elements of Dragon Ball Z. There is no Dragon Ball representation outside a couple of the character cameos and photos. And there's no GT love, which I know is an unpopular opinion, but I actually really like GT. The DLC go over some of the events that happened in Super, so who knows, maybe we'll get more DLC down the line. We also get DLC that goes over the history of Trunks, which is great because it's actually one of my favorite Dragon Ball Z movies. So one of the selling points of Kakarot, Toriyama stated there'll be supplementary story elements that was not shown in the manga or the anime. Most of these are behind side quests, but it's cool to tie up some of the loose ends with the plot. Like, what was Gohan up to during the 7 years Goku was away after the Cell Saga? Or what were some of the characters in the Dragon Ball era doing in the Z era? Pretty good stuff. My only gripe, it doesn't cover any of the movie material, so no Cooler, no OG Broly, no Janemba, nah. And I know the movies are not canon, but I would definitely love to pay to see some kind of what if scenario, but oh well. Now, the gameplay and mechanics. This is kind of where the game drags for me personally. Now, this game was developed by CyberConnect 2, who is most known for the Naruto Ninja Storm games, and more recently, the Demon Slayer game. So you can expect really flashy attack animations, really fluid combat, and they know how to really capture the action side of these anime series. And Kakarot is no exception. This game is probably the closest representation of the anime in terms of the fighting. But the issue is, there's really no variety in how these characters control or how these characters fight. No matter if you're playing as Goku, Piccolo, Vegeta, or Gohan, I cannot tell any difference how these characters control. Yes, the animations are slightly different, but under the surface, It's really the same. The gameplay in terms of fights are very similar to Xenoverse, but I think Kakarot does that style of gameplay a little better. I prefer the movement speed and the control scheme here in comparison to Xenoverse, so that is something. Just like Xenoverse, you can map special physical and key attacks to buttons on the controller. You could also access different transformations by holding both shoulder buttons and access healing items by pressing down on the directional pad. There's also beam battles, environmental destruction, and much more. So like I stated, this game is the closest representation to the anime and how those fights play out. Now, when you're not fighting, you're exploring the open areas from the Dragon Ball Earth, whether it's West City, Goku's home area, Capsule Corporation, and much more. Now, I know I said in my original review that one of the most annoying things was how each of the areas was sectioned off instead of being one big open world, and I still feel that way. It kind of kills the flow of exploration for me. Even with the improved loading times of the PS5, I would just prefer this game to be one big open world instead of having dedicated areas, you know? There are also side quests, and just like any action RPG, it would have been in your best interest to do these quests. These quests can be anything from your standard fetch quests or beat up a certain amount of enemies, but you do get tons of funny dialogue and supplementary story elements by doing these quests. You also get D medals, which you need to unlock some of the best moves in the game, and experience points for leveling up your character. Now, one thing I appreciate is how much customization you have with the characters and community boards. Now, it's not the most in-depth thing you'll see in any RPG, but I do appreciate the added detail. Each character have a skill tree that unlocks more as you progress through the story and complete these training challenges. You also collect these soul emblems for your community board, which allows you to have certain perks in different categories based on the character pairings. I like this a lot. So we covered the gameplay, the mechanics, but what else about this game? What other positives can I give you about this title? Well, number one, the voice acting. The voice acting is really on point, and the fact they were able to get the voice cast that we all know and love from the English dub, that definitely gave me the nostalgic feeling. I also really love the soundtrack here. Tons of great tracks that fits the mood of whatever you got going on during your playthrough. And also, even if it's not a lot of substance with the fights, the cinematography and the look of the fights really capture the feel of the anime, which I always appreciate. Overall, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is a game I can easily recommend to the fans of the Dragon Ball franchise. I can also recommend this to younger anime fans who did not grow up with the series, but wants an interactive way to experience the story for the first time. I'm not sure if Bandai Namco would continue to drop DLC, but I would love to see the OG Dragon Ball, GT, and movies being represented. But one can dream. I thank you all for following me on this revisit. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.